I need to cover. I've been watching the poll numbers, and President Biden has a very low approval rating, and it just blows my mind. And here's why. The evidence shows that he has been the most outstanding president of our modern generation. Let me give you a good example. During his presidency, here's the things that he's accomplished. He had a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill to start off, and that's why we have repairs on all our bridges, our roads, our highways. It's spread all over the country. He got $1.9 trillion for COVID relief. And that's important because over 200 million people got shots in 30 days, and that gave us the relief we get today for COVID. Federal judgeship, he appointed 41 already, of which 40% are African American. He created 6.6 million new jobs in the first year, 10 million jobs as of the date, 553,000 last month. The most jobs created in American history has been done under this president. The most jobs in American history created in this time period, never been done before. Whereas the lowest unemployment rate in the last 50 years. Our unemployment rate is down to like 3.5%. We have 11.4 million jobs and 4.5 million people looking for a job. And he killed that Al-Qaeda leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Got killed and took another terrorist off the map. And it goes on, but this is what he did specifically for Black folks. He gave $5 billion to Black farmers, for example, to make up some reparation for their discrimination. More federal judges, more U.S. attorneys, African American, in the history of our country. In fact, in Indiana, we have two, first time. Since 1816, we've been a state in Indiana, and now we have two African American U.S. attorneys. Never happened before. He expanded child care credit, and the list goes on and on. And so this has been the most accomplished president in the history of modern time. So I want to put that out there because the results of what this president has done does not match up with his poll number, and I don't understand why. I just think it's just a lot of negative publicity, but the evidence speaks for itself. Now, the second issue.
Ms. Attorney Lee?
Yes.
On that issue, if I may, please, I wanted to ask, given those facts, and I'm disturbed by the 39%, I think I saw today, approval ratings. Given those facts, how should President Biden and the Democrats be messaging as we're headed toward the midterm elections? Because President Biden has had like a really tremendous week. Let's just, you've described, the full scope of his success. And he's had a very tremendous week with 528,000 new jobs reported in the jobs report this week. You also referenced the Al-Qaeda leader that was killed this week, who had orchestrated, along with others, the 9/11 attack. As you know, gas prices are down, and the unemployment numbers are the lowest that they have been historically. And then also the Inflation Reduction Act deal has been negotiated, I understand, and it would make historic changes to address climate change in this nation, and also extend access to Obamacare, as well as allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Three critical provisions of that legislation. So President Biden's had a great week, and I'm just wondering, how can we ensure that this messaging of success gets to the people and results in voters coming out to vote, which is critical in these midterm elections.
That's an excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up, Attorney Banks. The rhetoric does not match the results. We've seen the greatest run by a president in the history of modern politics. We've never seen anything where a president has accomplished this much, not going back to the days of FDR, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon, Carter, Ford, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump. Nobody has accomplished so much in so little time. It's the most amazing run. Yet the rhetoric that done, I think that what we see is, I watched Fox News, I must admit, because I wanted to see what they're doing to spread information. And they say, all these bad things he's doing for the presidency, the worst president ever. And I'm saying, okay, we got the handle on the pandemic by providing $1 trillion in relief to get rid of the pandemic. We reopened schools. We've got a situation wherein America is moving forward. We created all these jobs, and things in the economy, other than inflation, are going remarkably well. And yet they criticize his presidency. It's most amazing. They were upset about taking the soldiers out of Afghanistan, for example. No matter how you remove troops from a country that's been occupied for decades, it's going to be a nasty venture. You can't fix it any kind of way you can, because as soon as they left, of course, the other leaders took over. But that's their country. Eventually, those people must learn to self-govern. So when you take the totality of this, our messaging by the president, I think, is off. I don't think that most people realize these phenomenal accomplishments. So they need to stress it every day. Trump will go out and do one thing and boast on it for a month. Yes, go ahead.
I hear your complaint, but does that go back to the president's public relations office? If he's having all of the success, which he is, if something is not happening in his office to show this to the public. I'm reading this book now called 13 Clocks, and it's about the formation of this country back in the 1775 and 76 specifically. But the basic point of the book to me is when you're talking about the common cause that they created for the 13 colonies back then, was they acknowledged we can't do it without the media, and we got to use the media. The only media we had back then was the newspapers, and they made sure that the newspapers riled up the people, that the newspaper created the common cause. Here we have all of these modern types of communication to the public and news media to the public and the internet and all forms. Obama was good at using it. Something is lacking in the President Biden's administration to promote and show his accomplishments. You're citing them, but undoubtedly there has not been enough effort to get that to the public so that they can recognize them, probably because of the goal and the attack by the Republican Party and their determination to win back the presidency. They're undercutting everything he does, which means that we got to put more on the positives that he has accomplished. So it's just it appears to me to be a lack of public relations to push this man.
Okay, one other thing too for our callers, our new number is 833-653-3529, 833-653-3529. The acronym is 1-833 in Lee Law.
Attorney Grimes?
What they're pushing
We
is
have
that
a caller here, Collins.
Okay, caller, what is your question for today?
Hello, Nate.
Yes, sir.
Oh, good morning to all the attorneys.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, sir. What's your question for today?
This Pierre. I just wanted to say that, get your thoughts on it. The president's been, he's taken some hits, but I mean, he's had some successes. And like you said, he just needs to get out there and repeat it. But one of the things that I think that Democrats need to do, and that is they need to run together as a team and trumpet the president's triumph. The other thing that concerned me, though, Nate, was, and I want to get your opinion on this, Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. I mean, what was that for? I mean, that could really blow up. And I just, for the life of me, I wish the president would have a better control on some of these people. But, but
Pierre, I'll ask you something. Here's the thing. In a democracy, in terms of the chain of command, the line to president, you have the president, you have the vice president, and then the Speaker of the House. So in a democracy, the president of the United States have as much authority over the Speaker of the House as I do as to what you decide to eat for dinner tonight. So in other words, in a democracy, it's a issue of shared power. And so the president can't tell her like she's a 5-year-old. She tell him go to hell, in a nutshell. But the second thing, though, now why do they do that? Let me explain to you why these strategic lines are important. China does a significant amount of business with the United States. Way back in 2002, I learned that Walmart by themselves was buying $1 billion in goods every week from China. So, and so our trade deficit had a lot to do with China. So the fact that China's upset, they threaten to, is unsafe. Right. They're taking billions of dollars every week out of our economy because we're buying their goods. So even though they're huffing and puffing because the leader is up for re-election or retention vote or whatever, I just thought it was just a bunch of political demagoguery, quite frankly. I understand why she did it. And I agree with you that it seemed like it raised tension, but, it's a free country.
Well,
the president has no authority, Nate, no power, hey, this is a democracy, but we're all doing this together. She can't just jump off on something on her own, can she?
Absolutely, she
thank
can.
you, Milton.
No, she's got her own budget. By the way, the Congress passed the budget, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that. The president only ratifies. So she controls the purse strings. We got the third most, really, in reality, the Speaker of the House is the second most powerful person in the country because none of the legislation in terms of budget and all that stuff, it comes from the House and has to be approved by the Senate. So in a nutshell, in terms of a democracy, he can't tell her what the heck to do. Make no mistake about that.
Although the White House did discourage the visit.
Yeah.
Hello, Nate. Are you still there?
Yes.
One quick point. Thank you for bringing that in, Attorney Grimes. The point is, the plane that she flew on was flown by military personnel. He could have told them not to go. The point is, if there's a war, if there's a war that breaks out, who's going to be responsible to handle or clean up that mess? It's going to be the president. So I mean, it's like, we need to help the president out. And Nancy Pelosi, I love her, but that was just ill-advised. And I wish they would stop doing this, especially before the midterm elections. What if the Chinese decide to invade Taiwan a few weeks before the midterm elections?
I don't think it have an effect because remember the House of Representatives.
You don't think it will have? Well, it could.
But one final thing, then I have to go to the next call, Pierre. Okay. Don't forget, Article 1 of the Constitution is the House of Representatives. Don't forget that. So we're not talking about it's co-equal branches of government. You can't have one person decide that. Now let's go to the next caller. Next caller, you have a question for us. Let's see.
Yes, hello. How you doing, Brother Nate?
Yes, how you doing
And
today?
and your guest, your attorney guest, brother Imhotep here. Thank you for taking my call. A couple of things I want to bring up. I didn't know if you did. Your opinion of Merrick Garland and them, and the possibility of definitely getting convictions from charging in the Breonna Taylor case.
That's a good one.
I thought that was a monumental step right there to let the police know the federal government is now back to doing what was done before the consent decrees were all stripped away, and you can explain that one day. But I think that either the Trump administration or Supreme Court, something happened to where most of these cities that had consent decrees, Louisville had one, and I think they were taken away. So that would probably be something you can maybe inform us on. And then number two, the Brittany Griner situation. We know from mass incarceration that many, many Black people here were wrongly and unjustly given scarlet letters and convicted for small amounts of drugs. A lot of them were users during this 40-year period. And I think it's a disjustice of the mainstream media, and even if it's Black media, to concentrate and talk about the injustice of Russia. And it is. I mean, we've decriminalized drugs. Look what Ryan Mears did here. And it is. But yet, we cannot overlook the fact we still have people here locked up. Michigan, there's a gentleman in Michigan right now who's got caught with 2 pounds of marijuana in 2004. He was given a 30-year sentence. Well, Michigan is totally legal. They were medicinal 6 years ago. They're totally legal recreational right now. And Judge Mathis and Ben Crump are continually having a problem getting this man out of prison. So, I would like at least for us to highlight still that governments around the world have done this and here. And I think that what happens is the mainstream media is great at picking something and always going against a foreign adversary, something like that, but they do a poor job of highlighting the total injustices that were done here and maybe are still being done here. I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out because totally the laws around maybe, I'm not going to judge. I've been to a number of countries, and other countries, she would have got life in prison. But the point is that they're still draconian as far as that amount that she actually wasn't a trafficker, a dealer, or anything like that. But that happened to us here. And I think that since they've been talking about this and none of them have managed to bring up mass incarceration and definitely the damages that it's done to the Black community here. And I just want to make sure I threw that out there when we talk about legalities and incarceration of people for
wow,
small,
that's a lot.
petty drug offenses.
That's a lot. Let me go to Senator real quickly, and then we'll get back to this topic. We have our special guest, Senator Taylor. He's the minority leader in the Indiana Senate. And the reason he's on today is that Indiana became the first state to attack women's rights in terms of legislation. Senator Taylor, tell us about this bill that your legislator just passed to make us the worst state in the country for abortion.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I'm a little tardy. It was a tough night, but
well, you have to throw a few punches out to get out of the state house. I saw the police surrounding the building.
Yeah, I had to be walked to my car, but the people were very upset about what happened last night. The bill that was passed last night, or the concurrence that was passed last night, has now put Indiana on the map as one of the most conservative states when it comes to abortion rights for women. So last night, the bill, the language in the bill says that you can only get an abortion in Indiana as of September 15th this year if the woman's life or the health or life of the woman is in jeopardy, and if you are a victim of rape or incest. But that exception for rape or incest has a limit of 10 weeks. So if you are a victim of rape or incest and you don't come forward within that 10-week period and actually tell a physician, you will have to carry that rapist or person who committed incest against you you have to carry that child to term. And I think it's a very draconian mindset that put us in this position. But they only got 28 votes from senators, and some of those were even reluctant, although they did it. Indiana Right to Life, just before the vote, sent a message to the senators that they supported and told them to support the bill, even though the right to life had always been in the position where they felt it would only be the life of the mother. So nobody didn't call a victory, pro-choice or pro-life, for what we did, yet we did it anyway.
Yeah, but here's my problem, and I'm sure my expert panel is probably as equally outraged about this as I am. So if a woman get raped, and we have two problems. If the woman goes beyond that short time period, because a lot of times women don't know they're pregnant right away, and the statute make her conduct a criminal or the person performing the abortion, at least my initial reading of it, I could be wrong, a criminal. And first, how do you prosecute the rapist? And second, if she has a baby, who in the hell is going to support the baby?
Well, first, it does not criminalize the woman. It criminalizes the doctor who performs the abortion. You get a level 5 felony, which is a term of 1 to 6 years in incarceration, 3 years presumptive. So they would have to, that doctor or physician that performs the abortion would be subject to license revocation. And the person who was the victim of the rape or incest does not have any criminal charges. But the key to all of this is it still comes down to a woman's right to have bodily autonomy. And, who would ever think in a state like Indiana we would force a woman to have her rapist child? And here's the most interesting part. When the bill left the Senate, if you were younger than 16, you had 12 weeks instead of 10 to actually do something about it. But when it came back, they lessened the number of weeks because it doesn't have an age limit. It's anybody. They took away the weeks from younger people. It was the most amazing discussion with the author on the floor of the Senate that nobody could say why 10 weeks was 10 weeks. It's like they took this 8 to 12 and just said, okay, we're going to cut it in half and go to 10 weeks. There's nothing scientific about that time period. And like you said, most women, including my wife, when we had our first child, she didn't even know she was pregnant until she was at least 12 weeks. And I think it was more like 13. So it's not a good law. And shame on Right to Life for supporting it, or at least telling their senators that they could support it, because it doesn't even fit their standard. Yet, like I said, this is a lesson for the citizens of the state of Indiana, yet they passed it anyway because they have 39 members out of 50. And that's not good for anybody. And if the people of Indiana don't wake up and see that this is not a good state to be in right now, then I don't know what to say.
Attorney Banks, you having a question, or Attorney Grimes?
Well, in fact, one of the Republican representatives stated that, and I quote, "The body inside of a mom's body is not her body. Let me repeat that. The body inside of the mom's body is not her body, not her body, not her choice. Just outrageous statement. And we know that 16 states in the aftermath of the Roe decision have either restricted or banned abortions. And I think that this law, similar to the Idaho law, where the DOJ has sued the state of Idaho, that I believe this Indiana law may be subject to the same type of legal challenge.
Well, let me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Senator Taylor.
One of the things that I want to caution your listening public, is that if we keep depending on the Supreme Court to do something that we all know will get political in the end, at the end, we are subject to seeing some other restrictions that the Supreme Court can look at. For example, the two cases, one in regards to LGBTQ plus in the marriage, constitutional right to marry, we could see that stripped away. And there are other, and Clarence Thomas gave us a hint about what could be on the chopping block later. And I brought this up in my discussion on the floor. If you think this is the end, you might want to stick around. Whether or not you marry somebody should be your own choice. And we all believe that as citizens of a free country. But the Supreme Court now has become an outlet of political discourse that will allow them to, like they did in this case, send it back to the states. And we've already got a U.S. senator who's already said that he thinks it should be left up to the states if you could have an interracial marriage. I mean, we're taking steps back here from a constitutional standpoint that I never thought I would experience in this country.
Hearing what Vanita Banks just said about what one of your senators said about the body inside of the body, I'm not trying to be facetious, but thankfully they didn't have the reenactment of slavery on your ballot last night on the up for vote. Y'all may find yourself. But point that Nate brought out, I am being a little facetious. I know that we wouldn't vote for that again, but I have a case where a young lady is 11 years old and she's impregnated by a 34-year-old man. But I was just thinking of how her pregnancy was discovered. And I can just see her being 3 months pregnant and not showing and no one knowing. And what would happen in that case when a young lady is 12 or 14 months along and then just discovered they wouldn't have a right to have an abortion?
Right. They would not. She would, in that scenario, she would have to carry that fetus to term. And if she did not, first of all, she couldn't get an abortion here in the state.
Right.
And if a physician actually performed that abortion, they would be subject to license revocation and criminal penalties. So you can forget about it happening in Indiana. The part that disturbs me the most is who is in control at that point. Instead of it being the family of that 11-year-old, technically through what we've done, what we did last night, that person who had intercourse with an 11-year-old is in control. They are forcibly, the state are forcing that 11-year-old to bear that child of somebody that they did not have the statutory ability to stop. that's just is sickening to me. We should all be disturbed by that.
Yes.
And let me say this too, because I think a lot of people around the country will look at Indiana and say, wow, that's what we expected. But on the precipice of this happening, you saw what happened in Kansas when they put this out to the people to let them decide. Overwhelmingly, that state is even more conservative than Indiana, in my opinion, voted almost overwhelmingly to keep abortion rights in their constitution. And I think the citizens of the state of Indiana would do the same. Unfortunately, because of the systematic gerrymandering of the state, everybody believes that Indiana is this bastion of conservative power. And it's really not true. We had hundreds of people at the State House yesterday and last night that conveyed to their senators they didn't want this, but they did it anyway. And these senators believe that they can do this, walk back into the State House and Jared, this is not over. If you think there's not going to be some piece of legislation after the election to put more restrictions on a woman's body, boy, you haven't been watching the Indiana General Assembly. So this is not over by any stretch of the imagination. And for Right to Life, I mean, the Right to Life organization has always said to us, it's about God and your decision when you stand for your position on this matter will basically determine whether or not you inherit the kingdom of heaven. And for them, as an organization who is supposed to be supporting the life, that unborn life, as they call it, boy, they left that because the doctor, here's the interesting part. If you're a doctor and you find yourself in this situation, you have to sign an affidavit saying that the conception or the fetus is only 10 weeks from conception. There's no check and balance. There's no way for the doctor to be checked as to whether or not that is true. If the child is the person who is your patient, then you've got, if it's incest, how do you go to the guardian and ask for their permission? I don't understand how Right to Life can claim a victory on this. And I know pro-choice can't claim a victory, but nobody received anything positive from last night's decision.
The
Okay.
messaging has to be, rather than to try to, and thank you, Senator, for your tremendous efforts and insights. The messaging, from my perspective, is not to try to bring the pro-life constituencies, not to persuade and influence them, but to continue to advocate that this is about a woman's right to control decisions regarding her own body. And I was very encouraged by the decision of the voters in Kansas this week, where we have now I'm hearing an echo.
Yes.
Only 25% of registered voters are Democrats, and 60%, however, 60% of the voters in this primary casted their ballot in favor of retaining the right to an abortion in the Constitution of the state of Kansas.
Yes. Yes, that's very revealing, isn't it? And in
Absolutely.
Indiana, the percentage of registered Democrats is higher. I think it's somewhere around 38 to 40%. So when you look at it from a political perspective, you could see that even those who claim to be conservative have considered this issue to be a right of women in this country. And what you have is a runaway legislature that is determined that because they have the power. I mean, listen, first of all, they have 39 members. Let me make this simple math. The first time the bill passed, they got 26 votes, which is just enough for a majority in the Senate. This second time we voted on a change bill, they got 28. That means there were at least 11 of their members who voted no. Then, when you couple that with the fact that after the vote, there were members of the Senate Republican caucus crying about what they had just done. I mean, literally shedding tears because they knew that they had not voted for something that was consistent with their dialogue in regards to right to life. The
So how do
only
you
people,
explain their vote?
the Indiana Right to Life. So Indiana Right to Life does every election year, they do an endorsement questionnaire where they send out questions to all the legislators, and you can send back and answer their questions. There were, in the 2020 Senate elections, there were at least 15 members of the Senate Republican caucus who said in their questionnaire they would only vote for life of the mother. And that was the question. What exceptions would you have? You had a choice. You could go life of the mother only, life of the mother, rape and incest, no limitations, or you believe that abortion should never be legal. Those members who received the endorsement from Right to Life were told by Indiana Right to Life that this is okay. Go ahead and vote for this because it'll take care of 95% of the problem. And so they were kind of released from their obligation to Right to Life to vote, but they didn't, their conscience and their soul was not released. And that's why they cried, because they knew that they, even testimony, you're going to have to answer to God for your decision on this matter. And their members believed that. And so they were really upset about the fact that they voted for it. Shame on them for doing it. I mean, like I said, they questioned they always question Democrats' ability to love Christ. But this was definitely a situation where they're going to have to check themselves before they go in front of our maker.
Okay, we have a whole slew of callers waiting. So let me go to a few of the callers and see what the issues are with them. Okay, next caller. You have a question or comment for us today?
Ruth Messer, you have to unmute, please.
Oh, wait a second.
She's muted, so we'll move her to the waiting room. If there another caller, we'll go to that one.
Okay, go to the next caller in the waiting room. Hold on a second. Can you let them in? Okay, here we are. Okay, Messer, can you hear me? Your phone is on mute, so we can't hear you. Okay. they're still on mute, and so we'll go back to this senator real quickly because our callers are still on mute. In terms of, I saw that the governor then signed the bill last night, this draconian bill.
Yeah.
The effective date of this bill will be what, September the 15th?
September 15th.
Okay, Bruce Messer. Hello.
This is Elder Jabo.
Okay, Elder Jabo, you got a question coming? Is that you got some sound in the background?
I had the radio on, but my question is not about the abortion, and if that's what you continue to talk about, then I can refrain. But if it's open for another topic here, I sure would appreciate being able to ask you. And it's dealing with the situation with Emmett Till and the warrant that has been found for the person, Carolyn Bryant Dunham, that fingered him and caused her husband and his brother to kill them. And I wanted to get your legal opinion as to, and the clerk has certified that the warrant is valid. Should not that warrant be served? And when you're talking about the person to serve the warrant, which would be the sheriff of Lafleur County, it is a man of African descent who Emmett Till actually gave his life for in order for him to be in that position. And now he is silent on whether he's going to serve that warrant or not. I'm talking about, and I'm not opposed to voting, but when we vote and accomplish the mission of putting someone in office that is supposed to be more just toward our cause, and then they're silent and are going to let this woman get away with the part that she played in Emmett Till's murder. How do we evaluate that? And that's a political question and a legal question. And I would appreciate it if you would opine on that.
Well, okay. Then we're going to go to the next call. We're going to talk about this next week because this week we had some significant development in the Breonna Taylor case. And so next week we're going to deal with those civil rights issue. We got to finish up this abortion issue because that's the hottest issue today, along with, of course, because we have this draconian bill. And now, Mike Chisley, you have a question?
Yes. Could your panelists explain, with all these people who are upset with the abortion law that passed, how did we get a supermajority in both legislative bodies if these same people did not vote to put these legislators in place?
Senator Taylor could probably best explain that. Go ahead.
Yes. In the state of Indiana, in most states around the country, you have to recertify your population. So what happens is there's a thing called redistricting that puts districts to that where the legislature draws districts that are consistent with the population. You have to represent, for example, the 50 senators have to represent approximately the same amount of people. So that's called redistricting. And in 2020, we did redistricting here in the state. And if you look at how the maps were drawn, specifically communities of color were dissected and packed, which is, so you dilute the minority vote, you dilute the party vote, and therefore, when you go to the polls, you only have the choice between one or the other, and therefore, the system has been gerrymandered. There's no one, even legislators, who believe, if you look at the registration of voters, we are about 48% Republican, 38% Democrat, and a majority the rest are independent voters. And when you look at the makeup of the General Assembly, you would see it's approximately 75 to 80% Republican. That is inconsistent with the values and the voting public in Indiana. So that's how you get those districts. That's how you get the number of Republican and Democrat. For example, in the Senate, there are 39 Republicans and 11 Democrats. Now, you believe that Indiana is 80% Republican, I think you probably, well, I know you're wrong. So that's how it happened. It was the redistricting that created this supermajority.
Okay, just one other thought to the earlier callers that were talking about limiting Nancy Pelosi. To show how much power that the Speaker of the House has, if the Republicans take the House, you're going to see how much power that the Speaker of the House really has. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, let's hope that doesn't occur. I mean, and okay, Ruth Messer, you have a question or comment? You still, Messer, you're still on mute, so we can't hear you. Okay. Last time. Okay. Well, our callers are on mute, so we can't hear you, so we have to move on. Now, one final issue regarding this matter. Our prosecutor in Marion County has decided that he would not allow the prosecution on these type of crimes. In Florida, we saw Ron DeSantis, because the prosecutor merely suggested that it's not a good idea to prosecute these people, he suspended them. In that legislation, Senator, do they have any provision that mandates that the state attorney general, who sometimes do some cuckoo things, will be able to prosecute people in Marion County?
Yeah, so there is a section in the legislation that says that the attorney general can pursue these cases outside of the jurisdiction of the local county prosecutor, elected county prosecutor. And as you know, as an attorney, there are standards before you take someone's property or their freedom. And we decided, I didn't vote for it, but that's what the legislation said, that preponderance of the evidence will be the standard that will be used for the attorney general to actually take the license of a physician who violates this law. So there was a section in there for the attorney general to investigate these cases. And we all know, and I brought it up on the floor, that the attorney general right now is in the midst of trying to pursue the doctor who actually provided the abortion for the 10-year-old out of Ohio. And so what you'll see is an inconsistent, and this is based on facts because our attorney general has been inconsistent on these matters, prosecution of these physicians if they are considered to have violated the law. Not because there's some type of violation there, but because our attorney general, unfortunately, has a political agenda, and he's been putting that forward since the beginning of time on issues that are unrelated to the state of Indiana. So, we brought it up on the floor that this attorney general is not the one that should be in control of this decision making. And so, yes, there is a provision that would allow the attorney general to pursue the license of the physician.
Okay, Attorney Graham, any concluding comment as we go to the end?
For me, thank you, Nathaniel. All I have to say is that we are in a tough time in our history. We are on the course of going backwards in our laws. And this is utmost important that our voters realize the need for them to exercise their right to vote and come forward. We cannot go back to making America great again.
Well,
Attorney Banks?
Nick,
Okay, go ahead.
Did Senator Taylor want to speak?
Go ahead, Senator.
no, go. Oh, okay. Thank you, Nick. I said this last night on the floor, and I'll say it here on your show. If you think that this is the end, you are sadly mistaken. Clarence Thomas gave us a roadmap in his concurring decision. This is the beginning of what your panelist said, of moving this country back. The Supreme Court has become a political stalemate on states that don't abide by their decisions. All of these Obergefell, the other decisions, he stopped short of the decision in Loving versus Virginia, which was consistent with how the abortion rights became a constitutional right. And you will see in the future some efforts to push back on rights of citizens that we've never seen before in this country. And I want to tell you, one of the things that I discovered, this legislation is consistent with countries like Nicaragua, Poland, and other third world countries that have pushed back on the rights of women. We are becoming, in this country, we're being considered consistent with third world country decisions on religion and other things. And it's a scary thing to think about, that this country that was built on religious freedom is moving backwards.
Okay, Attorney Banks?
From my perspective, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I also believe that this law, this draconian law passed by Indiana and signed by the governor, will be challenged. You know, as I read it, it's overbroad, it's vague, it's inconsistent with federal law, which protects a woman's right to have an abortion in emergency situations where her life is in danger. And so also I think we're going to see, and this was in reaction to the Indiana law, Eli Lilly made a statement that as a result of this law, it must consider its growth. And Eli Lilly, the largest employer in the state of Indiana, they are considering growth outside of the state. And so I think in these states, and there may be roughly half of the states that will ban and or restrict a woman's right to reproductive health care, I think we're going to see an economic impact in those states like Florida as a result of these draconian laws. Much more to follow.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for calling in today. And don't forget, next week, we're going to tackle some additional exciting legal issues. Our phone number, write this down, will be 833-653-3529. Also, I'd like to advise you that on August 26th, we will have a community forum featuring Cedric Richmond from the White House at Olivet, along with the U.S. attorneys. It's an historic event. The first time in our nation history, Indiana has an African-American attorney general. We have two, and we're going to showcase that and deal with issues of today. Finally, I'd like to thank each and every one of you in our listening audience. Don't forget you can join us on YouTube, Facebook, along with 10 radio stations. Thank you, and may God bless you. And we will talk to you again next Saturday, same time, on Legally Speaking talk show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.